I don't do things that's only half done. Either we don't do it or we do it fully. I don't care if it's business, work, having fun, drinking. It's either 100% or we're not doing it.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders, take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment and feel the beat within. In a few seconds, you just jumped from your head to your heart and felt the beat within, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode, I'm your host, Nico van der Venne, confidant to successful CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs who are striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I have a small request. If you find value in our podcast, please take a moment to subscribe and add that 5-star review. Share this episode with at least 3 people in your network. Thank you so much for the support, guys, and for keeping on listening to our podcast and these wonderful guests. Today's episode, we are welcoming Mads to the podcast. Hello, Mads. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Been a long time in the making.
Yeah, that's all right. You know, people who are busy, they have schedules that jump from left to right. And so we're here. That's the most important thing.
Finally here.
Yeah, indeed. I got one question to start off with. CEO disease and fundritis. Ever heard of it?
I've heard about it. We've had some previous conversations about it. To me, it's really, well, you're so blind. You're so much involved in everything that you can't see the forest for all the trees that's right in front of you. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. And well, basically, you know, a lot of those symptoms, you know, there's isolation, there's the overconfidence, there's, you know, resistance to change, lack of self-awareness. You know, a lot of people are a little bit self-absorbed, not entrepreneurs. No, not at all. No. You know who I'm talking about. You know, a little bit of a detachment from a company culture, stuff like that. Those are really symptoms. I don't know if you've ever experienced any of those, maybe a couple, maybe only one. Any experience there?
I'm sure there's been some experience with it. I believe in the terms of, like, some people probably called unhealthy work-life balance. I think if you find something you truly love and enjoy, and as long as you still take some time to the people you love, I wouldn't say it's a problem as long as you're enjoying it. You're not like completely stressing out and just being an absolute asshole to be together with, to put it as frank as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I probably more experience it in the way I described it, of being so involved in everything. Sometimes I get very tunnel visioned, and that all of a sudden you're back at step 2 because it's been missed. Like, they were right in front of you. Like, a good example is you're sitting there, you're doing something, you're spending hours and hours and hours, and decide it's finally time to go to bed. Wake up the next morning, takes you 10 minutes to plan. What was the big problem? 3 hours yesterday. Well, why didn't I? So that's where it shows through the most.
Mm. So the complete passion absorption of an
Yes.
issue. Yeah.
Yes, I don't do things. I joke about it. I don't do things that's only half done. Either we don't do it or we do it fully. I don't care if it's business, work, having fun, drinking. It's either 100% or we're not doing it. Either or. We don't go if buts and maybes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The drinking part, that's been a while for me, honestly. Yeah. I still go into, never did basically go all the way, but you know, drinking part is something very, very prevalent at some point for certain people in a lifetime.
I got it out of the system. I did it. I won't say anything to anybody that done it, because I have definitely done it myself.
Okay.
We went crazy that 19, 18, 20 completely. You know, it was absolutely insanity. I'm kind of happy that I got it out of my system, because then you see people that maybe like start doing a little bit later. They're spending their mid-20s doing it. If you get it out of your system, your early 20s, and you can just focus on the things that actually help you in life, I think that's healthy. But Some
Well,
of us at
it's
least have a little bit that needs to get out.
yeah, of course, and it's sometimes these things are really like scapegoats to get away from the busyness and the full blown passion on solving problems. It also helps. I remember our last conversation. I think it was on your podcast when we discussed it, where we were talking about drinking and business and drinking, about the effect of really hanging it out the day before with all these colleagues, where you then get promoted, and then there are no more colleagues; they're actually subordinates, and then and they remember those nights.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think
Uh,
you've had this experience.
I have been in that exact same scenario, and it's definitely a difficult one to handle. The only real trouble I ever got in because of it was we can't take them all out to drink. What if somebody calls in sick and nobody comes and comes?
Yeah.
That was the only real issue. Luckily nobody called in sick, and I definitely learned my lesson after that one.
Mm.
But I think if you set very clear parameters, you can like not blur the lines as much. It can definitely be a problem when you don't want to get hammered.
Mhm.
Don't do that. I've gone to the extreme now of, unless it's somebody I know really well, I refuse to get drunk in front of them. I won't do it. Of course, if you're in a club or a bar, none of those people you're going to see again. But if it's on a date or in a professional environment, most times I won't even drink the beer because I'm like, nah, I can drink, but nothing major. I don't want to get I don't want to get drunk at all. That's more to fit in, because
Indeed.
it we do dumb things when we're drunk. And I am definitely one of those people. Like, if you come up
Now,
with
this
an
is getting
idea,
interesting. Keep talking.
why not?
Is there a story coming up, or
Definitely, there could be a story or two. Here, I've done a few things.
we might digress a little bit about this on the subject? So basically, Mats, you've got your own company, and you've got your employees and that wonderful stuff going on. What's your experience with these founders or C levels who really go out and become the evil side of leadership?
Why? I don't really get. It works much better to do it the other way. If you have happy people, I actually have a good story about that. When I did management at a big retail grocer over here in Denmark called Bilka. Basically, I was going through management training, and there was this whole thing about acknowledging your people. And we were supposed to go up to an exam, like take one of the principles, go up and be examined. So I thought, fuck it, let's try this acknowledgement thing out. We were like a big team where we were always a minimum of 10 at work. So I was like, I'm going to acknowledge one person for one thing every day. Just one thing. It's not that difficult when you have that many people, and especially when you start looking for them.
Yeah.
But I noticed the theme where all the weekends I was not there, there was like big problems. They couldn't keep up. But when I was there, well, that was no problem. Pretty smoothly. For sure, sometimes it was high pressure, but in people wanting to make sure we succeeded when I was there, and also strategic thinking in terms of, okay, if we are really pressed to the max, we need you doing this, you doing that, you doing that. It needs to be some sort of structure. So it kind of became a problem for other people weren't doing, because you know how they do C level, like this at the top, this is like down at the bottom floor. They just look at the numbers and be like, well, they can do that. We didn't hear a problem. So let's just keep doing that because it's possible on paper, and it
Yeah.
was, but there was different things that played into the scenario.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that good management can do compared to bad management, and that they should just don't. You want people to want to work with you, not because of fear. It might have worked in the past. I don't know. I'm not that old of knowing how it works in the 50s and even before that. So can't say, but nowadays I think there is much better ways where you can get much more results. I actually watched a good documentary, like a quick YouTube video yesterday about Denmark is one of the richest countries in the world per GDP. But we only work 37 hours a week. We work a lot less than a lot of other big countries. So our efficiency per work hour is one of the highest in the world. So, and that's not by putting pressure on people. That's by letting people shine for a certain amount of time and then go do what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably there's a certain formula. I think it's also something cultural because when you mentioned,
Yeah.
when my dad was working, for instance, the guy's now in his end 70s. It's a totally different world. He's a baby boomer. A boss was a boss. You listened to your boss and you did what they asked you to do. There was no way of saying no. That word was not in their vocabulary. The other way around, yeah, they said no very clearly. But as an employee, no way. And these days, I see like a lot of balancing out all these pros and cons and discussions, and people going into 15 different layers of compassion and so on. And at some point, I understand completely what's going on. You don't just want to be one of those bulldozers saying, what's done in the 50s or the 60s or in the 70s. You're going to do it this way. I do work in an environment that's still very classical in that level. It's a nuclear power plant, so you can imagine you've been doing this for 40 years, so we're going to be doing it. But they also have to change in their attitude because young people are coming in. Younger engineers and so on, and they have a bigger mouth. They're really talkative, and they really tell their manager, what you're doing, it sucks, really clearly, and they're not used to that. It's like he's talking to me that way. How? And in the beginning, apparently, there was a lot of, conflict and so on. But when they switched over to the listening mode and said, okay, let's listen to what they're saying and captivate what's necessary or what really impacts the environment. And they started to evolve towards that. And I think that's for a lot of companies exactly the same. For one, it might be a little bit slower than the other. But of course, if you're in a country where people already are of a mindset that, listening, very personable, very, very empathic. It helps, when you look at my country, I live in Belgium. We have three different official languages, three different official zones, actually four different governments. The national government, and then per language region, we have a different government, and then sometimes I'm even, I think we have more ministers than toilet ladies, basically. It's just unbelievable the conflict that's within our country about just, the other guy speaks French and I speak Dutch. Who the F cares what language you speak as long as you all, got the nose in the same direction and standing for it. It's one of the best examples of what happens in our country. The World Cup football,
Yeah.
that's the moment of the year every 4 years that our national flag flies everywhere. It's the only time in 4 years our national flag. It's and the added value that's come on that is that they actually put advertising on our flag as well. We have a beer called Jupiler, and they put it on the flag, and that's that's for flying in front of houses. It's completely nuts. All the rest of the time, we have the Flemish flag, we have the Wallonie flag. It's so nuts. But how can you create a culture in a country that already is in conflict, and then you have a company that has the environments spanned over two language zones where you have to talk to other people? It's so strange. And yeah, your country has a completely different history as well. You've
Yeah.
been independent for so long and so strong. It's another world. It's like it's amazing what you guys do. And indeed, maternity leaves and stuff like that, you've got a very strong process there that is also valued by everyone. And when they come back into the office, it's a different story than you would have here. People, come to the office with a very long face because they have to go back to work. I think you have a lot more people with a smiling face coming in saying, "Oh, I'm going to see my colleagues again."
Wow. About the reason why Denmark used to be the happiest country was because we drink so much. It's kind of basically guys consuming the most alcohol, the happiest people. Seems funny. They just went into bud. The same really quick went down. They were having a wonderful time, I imagine. But yeah, it is different than a lot of other places, like most places are. So I think it's it would be wrong trying to like duplicate a lot of the Danish system. It ain't gonna work. Firstly, it's like a tiny place. Like there's not even 6 million people here. It's very unified, as you mentioned. Like it's still 84% Danish, something like that. So it they're in big trust in the government. I do think they might have some problems coming. There's been a few things recently that might shift into problems in the future, but we all go through ups and downs. But could be worse. Could be a lot worse.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I only mentioned my country. I think we've had some recent news that has a completely different story where you're not even thinking about going back to the office. But yeah, it's just yeah. I think it's. But one big part is the attitude of leaders. You know, you set your example. Why is there a lot of conflict in my country? Because there's no straight, clear leadership. You know, the politicians jump from left to right every 4 years, and then they don't even agree on anything that is of value long term. So, what will you create with your country? You know, all the entrepreneurs here, you have to think about it. Our tax rate is 51 to 53%. So, almost half what we earn goes to government. And like I mentioned before, we have more ministers than toilet ladies, so you know where they're going with this. If you would expect that we have highways that are, you know, smooth. I drive a motorcycle, I drive a car. In both, it is a horrible experience to drive our highways, by the way. You know, you can really feel when you cross the border from Holland, you drive into Belgium, you drive through Belgium, and you go into the across the border to France. It's like you know these old roads where you come and they have cobblestones. Well, that's our whole country. I think Malta is a country that has less potholes than. Or, man, I'm dishing on my country here, but it's just if your leadership doesn't give you the right tools, and this is you know roadworks. It's their part. It's their role to do these things. If your leadership is not in that direction, how are your people going to do it? You know, it's just basic
All-
common sense, I would think.
It all comes from the top. Always, always comes from the top. Which is why important, like good leadership is so important, and having the right people, like sitting at the top.
Mhm.
Probably one of the best tricks for any manager to get or leader to get a quick boost amongst the employees. Next time, just grab them up, start mopping the floor. It doesn't even need to be dirty. Just have them see you mop the floor. They're like, actually, I'll fake that guy. He's telling me. Yeah, just a good point. Point.
It's
Clean
too
the
late.
cleaning lady came yesterday. You don't need to tell him.
I would kind of put a bucket next to it with some water because otherwise it's gonna be very obvious.
Yeah, try to take it a little bit at least. But
And you
just,
always
just
thought about that.
well, truly, yeah, truly is. I always remember like when management has done that. When I've seen it, like you all of a sudden you're not as opposed to when management says go do X because you're like, right, that's fair enough. But they're doing it themselves compared to well, nobody like they think they're too good for it. Like, and most people are gonna understand you can't do it every time because you have a million other things to do. But do it every once in a while and just being down in the trenches with your people, actually seeing how things run is one of the most valuable one of the most valuable places to spend your time if you are a leader is down there and to see how things are actually going. Because every time like another link gets added on, like another part of the meaning gets lost, gets cut down, coupled, and enough steps. So you're not going to get any of the original message. It's going to be completely different. We're speaking about all of a sudden.
True. Very much. Yeah. So you have been a founder at some point. So what's your experience starting up your company? Is that something that you know was like fluent and ongoing like you
Well, I've
planned?
always been with there's been companies that I have started trying to get off the ground. Always started with somebody besides just me. I'm not the person that goes out there and do the solo founding. I like the idea of you have a team of different individuals that focus on what they are the best at, and you just have trust among each other. I've done that both times, both with when I did content before and then business consulting, kind of a big mix of a lot of things, but also now with AI, is finding the people to actually work with you. I like that whole idea because on your off days you don't feel like it. The chances of you doing something a little more because it's somebody else is expecting it is a lot higher. Your chances of success generally become a lot higher, especially if you're like me. Then it's kind of a no brainer just because it's more efficiency and it's more enjoyable. So you got to keep doing it for longer, and you're going to be able to do more. So that's one thing that I do truly believe in. It is very important. Comes from catch though. You got to be able to communicate with your co-founders and have be able to communicate all the difficult things. That's almost like that's more difficult than like managing that and communicating downwards. Is communicating across or upwards. At least my eyes, because it's you gotta agree to some extent with whatever the other person is saying and find some sort of agreement because it's not your word that just goes at the end of the day. Sometimes like you just have to do it. That's it. And if they're just,
Because I said.
exactly. But we can't do that sideways up. And I doubt it's going to work. But that's definitely been a challenge sometimes.
Well, it's like a relationship, it's when you're married or have a relationship, you have to balance out things as well. You make decisions as well. And you're not the only one in the relationship. It's basically comes down to that.
What do you think? I like the idea. Okay, we do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't have that problem. I don't have any partners in my business. So I do have a lot of people that work for me remotely and so on, but I don't have any partners. So it's fun. I decide, and that's what we do.
What do you think?
And then I go into a company, do some consulting, and like, okay, so we have how many leaders? Damn, that's going to take a long time before they decide.
Nothing gonna happen.
A different story. So what businesses are we talking about here? What's your core business?
The core business at the moment is an AI agency called Intersect.ai, where we help businesses to build different automations. We have a few pre-built ones, foundation, social media, content planners. But the real goal is really to get to the point where we can build our own language model, large language model, made for business, for business's mind. If the consumer wants to, sure, go ahead, but it's really created for the business and not a mass markets type of thing as all the other ones at the moment are, and really niche it down, be specific. Also, protect yourself in the future. You never know. Like once subsidies, that kind of stuff runs out, what is actually going to be the real price of the different tools? We don't know. It's I like being in control and having some sort of control over it because it's just so stressful. Not being completely out of control. That's no, not a funny experience. I prefer things go wrong, I can do something to fix them, compared to, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do now?
Yeah, it's I started up on PC a couple of hours back to check, and it was Windows 10, and suddenly you get this this mentioning support is ending, blah blah blah, and it's like, you used to have a PC that you could run for years and nobody would complain. You would get your updates, and these days, so once that ends, what are you up to? You need to buy another PC because those PCs don't it's support for Windows 11 or whatever they're going to invent in the future. But it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's the same thing with AI. I use AI a lot. It's part of my team. Basically, I've got automations running and everything. And I love, for instance, 11 Labs. It's one of those systems where you use your own voice and it replicates it and so on. But it's one of the only ones that's out there that's really good, in essence. There are others, of course. But what happens when they jack up the price like double? Okay, crap, what am I going to do now? You have to have the money at that point. And then you're right, finding out and building your own story there is a good move.
Well, if you really want to sell the company for something, you can't go to investors and say we built on this system and this system and this. Your face is going to fall quiet. If you want to ever exit at a good number, you need to have at least have the groundworks infrastructure, and then you can use different things to go and plug in and support. But it's gonna be in house all of it. Also, seeing there's very big profit margin differences when it comes to, for example, some of the tools we have built using just an automation platform, but completely in house. It's higher. There's definitely a big difference compared to what you'd
Yeah.
have to pay somebody else for pre-built service, and then you build whatever you want in there,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
which
I
is
see that as well. You know, the monthly cost is exceeding some points where I'm like, okay, let's make this a strategic decision of how many times we use it and so on. And in the end, you know, it's the same thing. I find it very funny where I call them the golden shovel sellers. You know, there's all these guys out there who are explaining to you how to use AI or how to do social media or whatever. And at some point, there is a part of it, like for instance, for social media, if you've got 3 months of content, you can recycle that after 3 months. You don't have to do it again. It's the same with AI. If you make an image, it's your unique image that you created with your prompt, and you can reuse that. And they're always trying to get you to do new things. Oh, it's the same thing with this podcast. I keep on, doing the same thing over and over again, talking to people about the specific subject. And in the end, we always go somewhere else and come back to the subject. That's half the fun of it. But yeah, if you keep following those shovel sellers, you're gonna be out of a lot of money and not a lot of customers. You're
no,
gonna have a lot of customers. You have to
really
be
an
really, mindful of it.
expensive endeavor for sure. And actually, when it comes to repurposing content, sometimes you can just when repurposing, just repost it 3 months later. It's these day and age. I kind of notice.
Yeah.
I've done that multiple times on LinkedIn, and half of the time the post does 10 times better when I repurpose. Genuinely, copy, paste, save image, upload image. Here you go, done. 3 months in. So, and then like, what? Why did you do 10 times? I don't understand. All that logic says it, but just
Yeah, you
sometimes
have to
it's
find
worth
your own
try.
sense. Yeah. So, Mads, what's one message that you want to bring out into the world?
Just try. Just try. It shouldn't be that like all the what ifs, obstacles you think, oh, this is going to be so hard. Like that shouldn't view that as like a wall. Stop viewing it like it speed bumps along the journey. And you can't go along with any journey without those, but it's not a wall unless you get in your head it's actually a wall. So just start, try, and then most of it is going to figure it out. You're going to find out what is actually the real challenge and what's not. Sometimes those walls in our head are not even bumps, and then the real bumps come. You really feel it. Would never would imagine that one. So that's what I want to leave everybody with that's been listening to us today.
Great, great. This is great stuff there. Thanks so much for your time, Mads. And where can people find you and how do they contact you?
Well, they can find the AI agency at intersect.ai. And the best place to find me is either going to be on LinkedIn, Mads Rossau. I'll probably have that name spelled somewhere in the title or description because no way in hell people are going to spell it from what I just said. They'll be like, wait, hold up a second. The same on Instagram. It might be just Mads Rossau. So first and last name most places. But I'm the only one with that name, so it shouldn't be too hard if you just find it. And I'm on most platforms. And the business library, if you want to check out Nico's episode I did with him. Great interview. We had a great conversation. A little bit about nuclear reactors, but not too much as he can't talk. You can't do that. Not surprised.
We mentioned it. That's
Like quite 2 minutes, but yeah, we can't go into too much detail. I appreciated that. Still haven't had the Belgian police knocking on my door, so it looks like it went over pretty well without exactly.
By the way, I need to call somebody.
Great. I appreciate you inviting me on here as well. It's been a good 30 minutes, a fun 30 minutes.
Indeed. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for your time. And listeners, thanks again for listening to the podcast. And remember, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that we can grow organically instead of, all the other ways that are just worth mentioning. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.